Hey everyone, it's Ryan, and in this video we are taking it back to the beginning of when I started this YouTube channel, and I am doing another cake in a cup. This one is going to be the pumpkin chocolate chip. All right, so to get us started, I am going to add my eggs and my sugar to my mixer bowl. So I do keep my eggs for my compost, so I'm just going to set those aside. And we are going to add 1 cup of sugar to this. I'm gonna wash my hands. All right, so we're gonna add 1 cup of sugar. Okay. And then we are going to just mix this up quickly. All right, so now we are going to add the pumpkin. And this is 2/3 of a cup of canned pumpkin. This recipe is this cake was very popular at the bakery that I used to work at. This is not their recipe. I did not steal their recipe. All right. So this was very popular. This is one of my sister's favorite flavors of cake. So I have sort of come up with my own recipe for this cake. And because we are doing this in the little cups, I am going to do this in like a jelly roll pan or like a sheet pan, so that I can cut out the circles to go in our little cups. So that was 1 cup of flour, just regular all-purpose flour. So we need 1 teaspoon of baking powder. That is baking powder, not baking soda. Then we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. This recipe comes together really quickly, which is nice. You could do this with your hand mixer if you wanted to. You need 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice. If you do not have pumpkin pie spice, it's very simple to make with other spices that you likely do have in your pantry. And then we need 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. So this is a very spicy cake, which I love. So then we're going to mix this slowly at first, just to incorporate it. This is so much quieter than my other mixer, so I feel like I can sort of talk while we're doing this. So the next ingredient is going to be chocolate chips. If you don't like chocolate, or you think this is a weird combination, you do not have to add this at all. I thought it was a little odd at first when I first started working there and first ate this cake, but it really does work. And like I said, it was a favorite year-round for people. It wasn't just a fall thing. So that's why I was going to make this right now. So for my sister, so she could have a little treat. And because it is fall, so it is something that you do sort of think of for fall. So we are going to let this mix for a couple minutes just to make sure. I see there are some lumps of flour and stuff in there. So we're gonna let that get all incorporated. While that's happening, I'm going to take 1/2 cup of chocolate chips, put them in a little bowl with a little bit of flour, and just get those incorporated. All right, let's give it one more scrape. It looks good to me. So now we are going to pour in our chocolate chips with a little bit of flour, dusted. Pour that in, and we're just gonna mix this for just a tiny bit, just to get those incorporated. And the reason that you add the flour to those chocolate chips is so that while they're baking, so especially if you're doing like a thicker layer cake or cupcakes, the flour sticking to those keeps them from sinking to the bottom of your layers or your cupcakes, your muffins, whatever. It's like the same principle as when you make like a blueberry muffin and you dust the blueberries with a little bit of flour. And if you did not know that, now you do. So use that if you have an issue with your blueberries sinking to the bottom of your muffins. So I'm gonna move some things out of the way. Grab my pan. So I'm gonna be honest, this does not look like a lot to go in this pan. But we will see once we get it all spread out in here. It's that deep orange color. I love it. Because for these, we really don't need too thick of a layer because we're going to get, or hopefully going to get 2 layers of cake in our little cups. And this will puff up because of the baking powder. So we are just going to, and I did use mini chocolate chips, especially for this, because they are going to be such little circles and thin layers. I didn't want to have to fight with large chocolate chips, but if you're doing like a cake or muffins or cupcakes, you could very easily do like a regular chocolate chip. So this is going to be perfect. So we are going to get this in the oven. My oven is preheated to 325, and I'm going to start out at about 12 minutes and turn it, and then we'll go from there, and I'll let you know how long it takes to bake once it comes out, and then we'll get it in the fridge and let it cool. While all of that is happening, we are going to make icing. Okay, ignore my cord everywhere and this little setup I'm still not quite used to when I have to plug things in. So this icing is very simple, just like the cake. It comes together quickly. I'm going to use 1 stick of butter, and we're gonna mix that before we add the cream cheese because this has all been sitting out at room temperature. The cream cheese is very soft. The butter is room temperature, but it's not quite as soft as this. So you want these two to sort of be the same texture when you are mixing them. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix up the butter just a little bit. All right, so my butter is nice and soft. So now we're going to add 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese. And like I said, this is room temperature, so it is very soft and very messy. So I'm gonna try to get all of this off of our packaging. All right, so now we're gonna add our vanilla, which is going to be 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So for this, it might seem like I am not adding as much powdered sugar as you normally would to an icing. Mine are going in cups, so I'm not necessarily concerned about the stability. I really want that cream cheese flavor to come through. So if you're doing this as like a true stacked cake, you're going to want to add more powdered sugar. So just keep that in mind. And this, unlike a regular buttercream, this cream cheese icing really takes on the powdered sugar quickly. I don't know why I'm doing that so awkwardly. So start out slow. Okay, I am going to add just a little bit more, just because I want this. I'm going to pipe like with a star tip on this. So I want it to be able to hold its shape at least a little. So I'm just gonna mix in another half a cup. So this was 2.5 cups that I've added. All right, so I'm going to scrape the beaters down a little bit because there was some that had gotten up there on the top. And then I'm going to scrape down the side of my bowl. Get to the bottom, make sure there's nothing hanging out down there. We're gonna mix this up one more time, and then this icing is good to go. All right, so this is done. So we are going to put some plastic wrap over this, set it aside, wait for our cake to come out. I will show you that when that does come out, so you can see A, what it looks like, and B, how long it took. And then once that cools, we will start assembling. All right, so I just took this out of the oven. We are going to check it with a toothpick, and remember, you do have, came out clean. Just remember you do have chocolate chips in here, so you might come out with some chocolate on your toothpick. So this is going to cool. I'm going to pop it in the refrigerator after it's sat out on the counter for about 5 minutes. And then once it's completely cool, we will start assembling our little cup. All right, so our cake is completely cool. This took about 30 minutes in my little countertop convection oven. So your regular oven, it might take a little less time than that. You really just need to keep an eye on it and check it with a toothpick. So that just lifted out of there super easily. So now what I'm going to do is I have my little cups here, and I will link these down below. I'm taking it back to the beginning of when I started making these videos. I started doing little cakes in cups, and if you're the person that was real sassy in the comments under one of those videos, hi. Hopefully you enjoy this one too. Hopefully it wastes a little more of your time. But for the rest of you, hopefully you enjoy this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started cutting these. I sort of tried to map it out a little bit, and I think I'll get 6 of them. And with the rest of these, I am going to do some like cake pops. So I'll just like ball it all up and coat it in chocolate and all of that. So it won't go to waste. But this is just a little, I got my ring, my cutter that would fit down in the bottom. And you could do another size that's a little bit bigger than this. I'm not gonna go to that much trouble right now. So I am going to try to save and use as much of the cake as possible. So I am getting as close to the edge as I can, and then just pop your cake down in there. Super simple. And these are like a decent thickness of cake. So the thing that I love about these cups, and right now those little, I'm sure you've seen them, especially if you've gone to a market or if you follow any kind of like a market stand or people that go around to different farmers markets and things. Those little cake loaves are very popular right now. And like the reason that I love these little containers and the reason I like wanted to start doing these was they're easy to grab and go. So if you're doing a like a little birthday party, or you know, if you are doing a little farm stand or like a little pop-up bakery shop, sorry, I didn't realize those were kind of out of frame. These are easy. You can pop a lid on them and you're good to go. So I'm gonna wash my hands and then we'll get started on the first layer of icing. All right, so we have our icing, and I just have a piping bag here with a Wilton 1M tip That is my favorite star tip to use. So we are just going to fill this piping bag and get our first layer of icing in there. I hope this is enough icing. You don't want to do too much icing because then your ratio for cake to icing gets thrown off. And I mean, some people might want a lot of icing with their cake, but that is not going to be the norm. So I'm going to try to just hold this up right here and show you guys. So I'm just going to do a little swirl and fill it in, and I'm going to do that on all of them. Again, you're not going for like a ton of icing in there, just enough to fill it. And I wish I had my larger piping bags. I'm gonna have to buy some more because I am so tired of having to keep refilling piping bags when I'm doing stuff. So if you are going to be piping very much, get something bigger than a 12-inch piping bag. You'll be doing yourself a huge favor. So for this one, I'm just going to dollop that in there. Wipe that little bit off the edge. And you could easily use like one of those little oh my goodness, my words, cookie scoop on to scoop your icing in there, and then just use the next layer of cake to flatten it out. So I'm going to move on to my next layer. I am going to turn this one over so that I have a flatter side to just push down with. Your layering for this, like how you flip your layers, is not that important. And that center, it wasn't like underdone gooey, but it was definitely softer than the outside. So just be cautious of that when you are doing this. And when you're baking your cake, you want to make sure that it gets done all the way through. Okay, and if your cookie cutter gets a little gummy, you could take it and just wipe it off with a paper towel. I am just going to try to make this work because I only have 2 more to do. And I did set this cookie sheet under here just as a solid work surface, and so that I didn't get grease and everything all over my counter. So I'm going to set that aside. For this bit over here, I'm probably just going to cut this even and then make like a little teeny tiny sampler cake for myself or someone in the family. So wash my hands again. All right. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this so I can show you guys once we're done all the layering and just how nice this cake is to work with. It is not falling apart. It's not too wet. Because some cakes that have an added ingredient like the pumpkin or like a fruit, they're going to be super wet and like they can get gummy. This is not like that at all. So now we're going to fill our piping bag again. All right, so for this, I am going to be a little more particular about how I ice the top because, as you can see, the cake is sitting down a little bit in there. So this is going to be seen. So we are going to kind of do like a little rosette. We are going to try to make sure that all of the cake is covered, because that is going to seal in your cake and make sure that it does not get dry. Because a cake like this should be super, I'm sorry if you hate the word, moist. And there should be no question as to whether or not this cake is dry, because it should absolutely not be dry. And this is going to be pretty much the perfect amount of icing. May not have quite enough to do that extra little bit that I had, but that's okay. So again, we're just doing like a really big rosette and going all the way to the edge. Okay. Now we are done icing, and we have just the little chocolate chips. You can put those on there, sprinkle them. I always hate putting things like this on there because they're so uneven, but then sometimes they still end up in a pattern. Like this one kind of looks like a smiley face, but you could grate some chocolate over top. That would be pretty. Or if you wanted to go super like festive and fun, you could add some orange sprinkles. So then you just pop your top on. If you are doing something like a market or a party, you could tie like a little plastic or wooden spoon to the top so that people can literally just grab and go. And the best part about leaving that space and doing a thinner layer of cake and icing is that you can put the lid on and it does not touch and smash the top of your cake. So yeah, you could also do this in like little canning jars. That would be super cute. But I have a lot of these little cups because I had ordered them forever ago, and yeah, I just wanted to do another little version. And when wrapping these up, you could get festive again and use some cute twine or string or whatever like that. Now, let's see how much icing I have left. If I could maybe manage to make one of these into something that resembles a little layer cake. And these would be nice as just a bar as well. So we are just going to leave this one just like that. Whoa. So there we go. That's what the inside of our little cups will look like. Just a really nice little pumpkin chocolate chip cake. And I'm just making a mess of it as usual. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below if you have some recipe or something you'd like for me to make on here, or anything decorated cookie wise. I have some hopefully coming up in the next little bit for Christmas cookies. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.